Alright, welcome back baseball fans. This is another eliminating video. What you're looking at, eliminating the New York Yankees. You're looking at last year, in 2022. The Yankees had a losing season going 14-21, 249 average, 3.99 ERA. We're doing a comparison because they got so much better. Bobby Mercer was their all-star and their best player. They scored 137 runs, gave up 155 runs. Greg Nettles at 270, 722 RBI. We'll see something interesting a year later. Ron Blomberg's monster card didn't produce, just 253. Fred Bean was an outstanding reliever. Strat-O-Matic was okay. But basically, Fritz Peterson wasn't. And they hit 249 in the stacked American League East. But now let's take a look, a further look, a more in-depth look at the present year, where statistically they're pretty much average and team ERA were very close, but they produced more runs and gave up fewer. There were 204 runs scored, giving up 179. And Bobby Mercer's magnificent 1971 card delivered all 4 years in the 4-year carryover league we used it. He hit at least 333 every time, made the All-Star team every time. And this year may have been his best performance, hitting 375 with it. 5 homers and 35 RBIs in 43 games with 5 stolen bases. Blomberg's card finally produced in a platoon. Still got 111 at-bats, even though he can't hit lefties. Elliot Maddox was a real revelation with his 74 card as a 1-3 in center field, hitting 284. Not a lot of power stolen bases, curiously, but the rest of the Yankee team really didn't do a whole lot. Munson hit just 250. But you got to scroll down to Greg Nettles' bizarre year. Greg Nettles hit 191, but he had 28 RBI with just 27 hits. So he got the hits when it mattered the most, and you could pretty much say that's probably why the Yankees won a lot of games. They had timely hits here when they needed them to get some close victories. Because this team was under 500. Now they're 7 over 500. Overachieved. Came up against a White Sox team in the wild card round who just seemed to have the answers. Basically, it was Wilbur Wood and Terry Forster contributed to the 3 victories, and the Yankees just can't hit lefties well. Once you get beyond Bobby Mercer, Blomberg can't. You have basically Thurman Munson is all they have that can hit left-handed pitching in the cavernous left field of Yankee Stadium. Sparky Lyle was acquired in the offseason, and he got 13 saves in his first stint. In 2022, closer duties were handled. Well, actually, Lyle was there last year, but he had a 4.12 ERA. Much better this year. Fred Bean in the bullpen, McDaniel in the bullpen. Strat-O-Matic 9-3 with a 3.71 ERA, but he got knocked around in that playoff game. And that's the stats of the Yankees. Let's take a look at their stack. We're going to have to pull out the 1971 Yankees. So it's really interesting because we really felt that the 71 to 74 Yankees were a 500 team historically. And if you add the 2 seasons together, it's exactly 500. Last year it went all wrong. They were 7 under. This year it went all right. It's 7 over. They got to the playoffs, into the wild card round, could not continue. And so you have to consider that, well, they weren't going to win when they didn't have a wild card in that era. They weren't going to win the East with the Baltimore Orioles and the Detroit Tigers in the American League East. So it was a fun year for the Yanks, and they toyed with the almost getting a bye. That's how close it became. Ultimately, they got a fortuitous schedule, took advantage of it, and just faced a better team in the playoffs. So there's 8 guys who are going to have to have their cards replaced. Really good ones. And these are the 12 guys that are coming back. And fortunately, they're going to split it between 6 hitters and 6 pitchers. So that means the pitching staff should be great. They only need to add 2, but they got to do something with this offense. They got some guys coming back who are just Band-Aids. Those three guys, oh boy, this is a real mess. So, Munson and Maddox. So these are excellent cards. Maddox got MVP votes in 74. Believe it or not, top 10. He's a center fielder with a -3 arm and a 1, so that's always good, Munson. But Kendall's just a platoon backup catcher. Gene Alley and Stick Michael are just covering shortstop and utility infielder, and Tom Hutton's a left-handed hitting first baseman in Yankee Stadium, as they did not have anybody else that could do it. So that's not good, but the pitching should be. And it's outstanding. So, it looks like Stottlemyre and Peterson are going to have to be replaced. But McAndrew will come back one more time with this Mets card, stolen from the Mets. That's good news. And Medish is good, and he can pitch on 3 days rest. Though his susceptibility versus lefties hurt them in the elimination game against the White Sox. Entire bullpen's coming back. So it was McDaniel, an outstanding long man. Kekich, who could be moved into the rotation as he pitched 175 innings. This is his best year, by the way. He could go back into the rotation, or he could leave in the bullpen. And then you have Fred Bean and Sparky Lyle. Outstanding. So the pitching staff should rebound again, but they got to figure out a way of getting some better offense. And frankly, you know, these three guys, you know, if these guys get replaced, that might be a good thing. It's, you know, they got to do better than that. This is just, you can't have guys in the roster like that and expect to beat the Orioles and Red Sox and Tigers in the American League, Oakland, White Sox. Let's take a look and see what the Yankees do with the 8 missing players from 1971. All right, let's take a look at the 8 Yankee players and see who's coming and going. We begin with Ron Blomberg, and I think he's right in his wheelhouse here. Had an outstanding 71 card before he was a DH, because there was not one in 71. So look at that year. 322, 840 OPS. He's over 800 for the next 4 years. So he's a keeper for the Yankees, and it's just about choosing the year, 73 or 74. But a monster year he just had, and I'll have to duplicate that with another monster year. So he's a keeper, Ron Blomberg. Not much debate on that. Next guy is Horace Clarke. And his overall production is starting to get into the weeds a little bit here. 65 to 74, switch hitting shortstop with a little bit of speed, a little bit of power, a little bit of range, but it's just a little bit of all of that and not a whole lot more. So he led the American League in at-bats in 69 and 70, and from there on, it's a steady downward, as he's now 32 years old. Hit 250, was good enough to bat second and hit and run a lot behind Roy White. 639 OPS, it only gets worse. He definitely is a full-time player, so he can get waivers. For now, he's a keeper, you know, but he's not, I mean, he's easily replaceable if you find a better second baseman. So Horace Clarke right now is on the keeper list. An optimistic Yankee team would replace him, but of course, if this was the late 70s Yankees, they'd find somebody better like Willie Randolph. But it's the early 70s Yankees. So, all right, Mike Hirschberger was actually on the White Sox. He was signed to be a right-handed bat off the bench. Here he is. And he was a White Sox, a Kansas City A, Oakland A, and then back to the White Sox. It all comes to an end in 1971, so he gets retired. Thank you, Mike Hirschberger, for your nice little run there. Okay, next player, and this is a little sad. It is Bobby Mercer, but boy, that card. Let's give it some attention here. What card we picked up for Mercer. So the minute 71 card existed, here it is at age 25. This magnificent card. He was 7th in MVP votes, 25, 94th, 969 OPS, did everything. 2 in center field, -2 arm. We got this card immediately when it became available for 71. Played it out for all 4 years. Now he's got to go into something of a lesser card. But there's still awesome performances here. MVP votes, Gold Gloves. So it's just a question of what do you want more. He's got 33 home runs in 72. He's got a 304 average in 73. He is a keeper, and he is still the best player on this team. Bobby Mercer. Statistically, he'll come down, but you have this track record of the cards Strat-O-Matic's printed for him have been pretty darn accurate. He's been one of the most consistent players in the last 4 years with his card. All right, next up is Greg Nettles. We know he'll be sticking around. Yankees are going to have some problems here. They've got too many keepers, and they got to figure this out. So here's Nettles. And you see they went way up here with Cleveland, and they stole that card from the Indians. But you can get him all the way. 75 is an all-star. 753 OPS. Really, when you look at the OPS numbers, he's 785, and then from there it goes down. 4 years in a row where he doesn't match what he just did. 76, he's a little bit better. But he's in double digits in home runs for a left-hand hitting third baseman. He's a Yankee, and historically, I'll always stick with the history. So he's going to stick around, as is Mercer. So it sounds like Horace Clark might end up on waivers. Maybe even Bloomberg gets traded, as there's not much use for a designated hitter here. You can get anybody to be a DH. Next player, 6th hitter, and another Yankee that's part of the Bronx Bombers, Roy White. He's going to stick around. His only weakness is a weak throwing arm. Other than that, what's not to like? He's all over the place with his average. He hits 246, but he hits 18 home runs. Then he has 99 walks, and it's 10 home runs. He's all over the map here, but they're all good seasons. And of course, he'll play the entire decade. He'll win a couple World Series rings, so that's no-brainer. When we say no-brainer, we're meaning that Roy White, Greg Nettles have to be kept historically, because I'm not going to alter the history of the New York Yankees in this decade, as they'll, fundamentally be one of the biggest stories in this decade, along with the Cincinnati Reds, Dodgers, Phillies, Pirates, etc., Baltimore Orioles. These 3 guys look like keepers, and these 2 guys might be. Bloomberg is a great trade chip, let's face it. He's just a DH, but he hit 329. All right, I got 2 pitchers here. One's going to be kept, one's going to be traded. You got Mel Stottlemyre. He's getting up there. He only had a 10-year career. Pitching coach. But the next few years are very good. His numbers go down a little bit. 112 whip, now he's above that. But Mel's coming back at age 30, 31, or 32. Could you trade him? I don't think so. He's kind of like, again, one of these lifetime Yankees, and I'm not going to tamper with that kind of history. So I'm going to bring Stottlemyre back. And that's 6. That's too many. And the last guy here is Fritz Peterson. And now he'll get traded. Fritz Peterson. So he's a valuable trade chip. He goes to Cleveland in 74, 75, 76. We used this year By the way, in 70, led the league in whip. 2 years in a row he did. Look at that. 71, we just played this card. So he's got one more year on 3 days rest in 72. But with the Yankees, they got to be proactive here. You got to make this guy a keeper. But you got to go out in the off season and make the deals. You have to. Remember I said how bad guys like Alley, Hutton, Kendall, guys like that, Gene Allen, did I say that one? That's how you fix this team. You trade Peterson and Bloomberg, and then you add those fringe extra players that aren't associated with the Yankees as part of the deal to get a better quality. So with 7 keepers, we're going to trade Fred Peterson. We're going to trade Bloomberg. No one's going to want Horace Clark, so we may as well just put him on waivers now. Because it seems like these guys are locked in right here. Mercer, Nettles, Roy White, and Stottlemyre are kind of locked in the Yankee program. But a left-handed pitcher like Fritz Peterson, Cleveland could certainly use him. My goodness, the Indians could. Let me take a quick peek at Cleveland while we're here. Yeah, Cleveland's got Gaylord Perry, Jim Perry, and Dick Tidrow. The number 3 pitcher is going to be retired, Kilkenny. They've got a gigantic hole in their rotation. So that is the move. And how about, just off the top of my head, how about the Yankees sending Fritz Peterson to Cleveland and Cleveland sending first baseman Chris Chambliss to the Yankees? That's how we get the discussion started, at least. So that would be pretty close to tradition. That'd be a good trade. And Bloomberg, I think the expansion teams would love to have a short-term guy with eye-popping stats like Bloomberg. He's only going to have 2 more good years. He can't really field very well. He's a platoon player. But those gaudy numbers would look good on an expansion team. I think an expansion team is going to go jump on Bloomberg in a trade. And that's it for eliminating the New York Yankees. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.